I want to start with what I thought yesterday was the appropriate amount of enthusiasm for a local show for the Norman Powell trade, where we immediately made fun of the name Norman Powell and how hard it is to be a great athlete when your name's Norm, or specifically Norman. It's hard. And Chris Cote underestimated this person based on only his name. A Norman can only be so intimidating. And we said it was a good trade, and I thought showed the proper enthusiasm for the Heat getting better without losing anything of value. Clearly getting somebody on a everybody watching basketball would say that Danny Ainge did what he does and the Heat wins that trade because Norman Powell is a very good player on an expiring contract. That's what you want. The enthusiasm has now climbed to a place, though, where Zach Lowe is already willing to say that he knows that there are only 3 teams better than Miami in the East. And Boston's not one of them. It's Cleveland, and it's Orlando, and it's the Knicks. And that's what he says, the only 3 he knows, which is now, after this trade, what that suggests is the volume is being turned down from Flames engulfing Pat Riley to, wait, what? They're a 4 seed? You guys are going to try and talk yourself into the enthusiasm of Norman Powell makes them a 4 seed? And so now this excerpt from Greg Cody's column today. The Miami Heat won Monday's 3-team NBA trade with the Clippers and Jazz, and it isn't open to debate. Pat Riley sat at the poker table, picturing him in dark shades, and never smiled once until he stood up with all of the chips and a needed reminder of that familiar old mojo. The Godfather is still around, still able to pick your pocket.
That's correct. I stand by.
Yeah, but you made
got you back.
Yeah, but you made it a mafioso who is now just taking nickels out of your pocket. Like this isn't like a pickpocket is not like a pickpocket is the appropriate way to appraise this trade.
It was a pickpocket win on the trade because the trade worked for them both ways. It got them a quality player who makes the team appreciably better, and they also got rid of dead wood. It would have only been better had they been able to divest of Terry Rozier as well.
I want to hear from Mike and Zaslow on this because I think pickpocket is good, and the problem is that Mike and Zaslow want only a heist. Like in terms of what they want from the Godfather and the crime family, they don't want pickpockets.
Falsehoods. I wanted what we saw. Congratulations to Nick Harrison. Brilliant trade.
What do you mean congratulations, Nick Harrison?
I mean, Dan opened the door. I don't know who's in charge anymore. So let's, before we give the Godfather all the credit, this could have been a Nick Harrison move.
All 5 of them. Good job.
It was a great job. Heat brain trust. That's all we wanted. A move to get better. And look inside this Eastern Conference. Now you have Zach Lowe saying now it's a rhetorical trick. Saying, look, they're the 4 seed now. When over the last 4 years, I think the difference between the 4 and 10 seeds have been 1.5 games.
But that's just Zach Lowe, though, that is Zach Lowe not moving in the last 6 months off of his position, that if you give the Heat a little bit, they will wring the very best out of it. It's a league-wide fear that he's expressing based on respect for what it is.
Especially on that network, no doubt. But that is precisely why we've wanted the Heat to make improvements, because you have the greatest head coach, arguably, of all time. Wow. And if you give him more, the results will be better. So I'm glad that they made this move and they got better as everyone else in the Eastern Conference started to make moves and look like they had a plan. So I'm really happy with it.
My favorite part of the trade, and they got a borderline all-star. Like, if you remember, Norman Powell probably should have been an all-star last year. They got a borderline all-star for nothing. Did I need to see Kyle Anderson in my life any longer? No. So they got him for really nothing, okay? But the thing that I liked about that trade yesterday, it's not that we know the Heat's MO is to get the whale, to get the really big superstar player. The move that I've wanted the Heat to make is I see these other trades over the last couple years, like take Indiana, who we just saw in the finals, for instance, and they trade for Pascal Siakam a couple years ago, and it's like they gave up nothing. And I'm like, the Heat couldn't do that? Like, I want the Heat to make the trade where they get a good player for nothing. And finally, yesterday, they got the good player for nothing. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, and one of the things I wrote in the column is that, and Mike just alluded to it, to me, they rise appreciably from play-in purgatory to a position where they can compete for home court in the first round of the playoffs and win a first-round playoff game. Now, if your standard is, oh, they missed out on Kevin Durant. They don't even have a chance for Giannis. They're not a championship contender right now.
Who is that?
Then that's the complaining Heat fan. Then you're not impressed with Norman Powell. But if you're looking micro instead of macro, this is an appreciably better team in a very mixed. To me, you mentioned Orlando. To me, after Cleveland and the Knicks, it's wide open for number 3.
This ignores Detroit. It ignores Atlanta.
It doesn't ignore them.
You can't ignore.
It puts them with them.
I still think they got to do something else, but it does check a lot of the boxes, and I actually do think it helps your pursuit of getting a star player. I think that their trade assets now after this move are better. Powell is a player that you can throw into a deal and not get met with scrutiny and the ringers of the world saying your package is garbage. This is a player of repute.
The ringers of the world, I don't think it was necessary to say it that way.
It was super necessary.
I also think that you will get nowhere in your coverage today. I believe this firmly. I will say it aggressively in any language. No one will say of Norman Powell anywhere in analysis a player of repute. That's only here. That only happens here. You get a player of repute. That is the highest compliment. Pat Riley critic and Mike Ryan, Miami
I went to
critic.
NBC.
Let me just stop you guys a couple of times, though. You just said flippantly, Eric Spoelstra, arguably of all time.
I was like, whoa.
Best coach of all time. You threw the arguably in there. You can't just skip past that, running past that with
Arguably, yeah. Arguably greatest head coach of all time.
Look,
I mean, that's top 5 conversation, yeah?
I think it was weird that he said arguably.
I thought the appropriate level of enthusiasm for this trade is that, yes, Norman Powell makes you better. He is a very good player, and he was very good last year. He's a very efficient player. But now you've got $65 million in expiring contracts for free agency, and you kept saying they got a 20-point-a-game scorer. You kept saying 4-0. I really do wonder how Kevin Love feels about the Miami years.
He's voiced it.
The way you guys do that, where you just keep shipping him off and calling him nothing again and again. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
I mean, he or his social media managers said, like, I never thought I'd be a math equation.
Okay, right. But so I find it interesting that it took Norman Powell to bring the flames down on this conversation.
Just winning a trade. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yes. That's what we've been pounding
something
the table
positive.
For. Do something.
Hey, you did something good
to improve the team. Give your head coach a chance. Improve the team instead of standing idly by or actually making moves that make you worse while your competition gets better. Make a move. Make a move to let everybody know that you're not just going to stay stagnant.
All right. The move was trading Duncan Robinson for Norman Powell.
Well,
that's a big time upgrade.
It is a big time upgrade.
Not as a 3-point shooter.
Yes,
not.
it absolutely.
He's a damn good 3-point shooter. You watch her.
Wait a minute. No. I thought. Hold on a second. Hold on. Norman Powell he shot 42% from 3 last year.
That's really good.
And he's better than Duncan Robinson. You guys are just dismissing Duncan Robinson, though, as if he weren't important to the Heat.
Oh, but wait, whoa, you just moved the goalpost at a record amount there. You said that this wasn't a better 3-point shooter, and he is a better 3-point shooter, and he's available, and he ain't scared.
You can't be scared.
Oh, here we go.
Norman Powell has shot 42% on threes since 2021. So it's over a long period of time.
It's 7 threes a game. Yes,
That's good, man.
You guys are saying that you have made your team appreciably better. And if I started this offseason by simply telling you, hey, listen, you know where they're going to go? It's going to be run it back again, but they're just going to trade Duncan for Norman Powell. You good?
Yes,
that's better.
I don't think you.
We're talking.
I don't think you're good.
Like, that's a start.
It's a start. Duncan Robinson, to me, never lived up to his contract here. He was overpaid. He was inconsistent. He didn't really rise in the biggest moments. He didn't lift the team.
I don't think that's fair.
He was a spare
We've been
part.
appropriately called out on this, and so have I. Like, look, Duncan Robinson, this is a strange thing to talk about because people want to cape up for him as if there weren't games that he just didn't play. He was out of the rotation for a lot of their runs. He got his job stolen. There's a reason why he's kind of fallen out of favor. But don't forget the Duncan Robinson game. There was a Duncan Robinson game in that run to the finals against the Denver Nuggets. He was your boy. I think game 2, and then the one in the gentleman's sweep that we had, Duncan Robinson showed up.
Yeah, he had big moments in very big games. I don't think we're being fair.
Okay.
Shot for your life.
Okay. A real quick comment about Norman Powell. Last season in the NBA, he was one of only 6 players who scored that many points a game, who shot 48% or better from the field, and who shot 40% or better from threes. That's pretty good.
I'm not disputing any of this. I am simply telling you guys to please hear yourselves as a national show that has now changed its entire voice because of a Norman Powell trade, that if we were sitting here the last 10 days and Norman Powell had gone to any other team in the league, you would be mocking whatever it is that team thinks it's become by adding merely Norman Powell, who you now have going from a play-in team that was 10 games under 500 to somewhere in the middle of the conference where they would have to be 10 games over 500. And if I told you, would trading Duncan Robinson for Norman Powell be that difference, you would tell me no.
I don't know if it would be 10 games over. I don't think that's the goal, especially with all the
But I'm
injuries
saying,
in the Eastern
no,
Conference.
but if you're the 4 seed, you're 10 to 15 games over 500. If you're the 4 seed in that conference.
I don't know
Not
what
necessarily.
I don't know what the East is going to look like. I think it's going to be a bit of a mess, like it has been the last few years. And if another team made a move to acquire Norman Powell for essentially what the Heat gave up, I would also be very mad that the Heat once again are standing idly by. Let me give you a stat courtesy of Synergy Basketball. Norman Powell was the 6th most efficient scorer in the NBA among 68 players who used over 18 possessions per game this season. He shot 45% on movement, 3-point attempts, and 40% spotting up. This is a really good player. He's a good shooter, and thankfully they gave their great head coach something to work with.
Duncan Robinson has been under 40% shooting for the last 4 seasons, and you guys both went to Skurd, which is the biggest public indictment that you can make, because during slumps it was clear to everybody watching that he didn't want to shoot so much.
This is not a theory. It's that he lost his job because Max Strus would not stop shooting, where Duncan Robinson would very obviously to the eye not take the shots.
Oh, I didn't call him Skurd. I'm just saying you can't be Skurd. Everybody knows you can't be Skurd.
But
That's all I said.
you were saying he was Skurd.
No, I just said it's ambiguous.
It's not. It wasn't ambiguous.
The Heat
was
told you he
clear.
was Skurd.
No,
The Heat told
okay,
you by
but
him
I'm
falling
not.
out of the
I'm not
rotation.
talking to you. I'm talking to Zaz. You accused him of being Skurd. You did it.
Disagree. Do you need me to make a ruling here? I mean, I'm just saying.
Rule
all right.
against, you can't rule for
Okay.
Nip
yourself.
this right in the bud.
Okay, no, yes. If you want, you're the judge. Yes, you can make a ruling.
Yeah.
But this seems unfair. It seems like a conflict of interest.
You don't get to decide what's fair or not fair in my courtroom. Find you out of order.
This is what America's starting to feel like everywhere. You're going to make the ruling,
Yeah.
even though you've got a clear conflict of interest.
Was I calling Duncan Robinson Skurd, or was it completely ambiguous? It was ambiguous. With prejudice.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true, with prejudice.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Greg.
No, once you go, there was Duncan Robinson's name, and then I heard as the undertow to it, Skurd. You volunteered it, and Mike was so ready to notarize it back there.
It sounds like you're attempting to retry the case, and that's
Okay,
not going to happen.
All right,
Double
fine.
jeopardy.
All right.
All we have is the results, both the ruling and the fact that he fell out of the rotation for being
Okay,
scared.
fair enough. I lose. I don't want to risk contempt of court.